Hey guys, this is Hemant from Edureka. Today's session is going to be on Azure Training. So without any further ado, let's move on to the agenda to understand what all will be covered in today's session. So we'll be following a top-down approach today. We'll start with what is cloud, and then we'll move on to why Microsoft Azure is the topic of discussion today. Why do you guys want to learn about Microsoft Azure? Once we're done with that, we'll see what Microsoft Azure is exactly, followed by a use case, which is a real-life implementation of a problem that we'll try to solve in Azure. After that, now every problem in Azure is solved using services or instances, right? So I'll teach you guys how you can launch these instances or services in the Azure environment. Once we're done with that, I will teach you guys how you can implement this use case in Azure by a step-by-step configuration process. Towards the end, we'll be discussing about Azure Pricing, where I'll teach you guys how you can actually implement each of the services that we are learning today for free. Yes, you heard it right. We'll be discussing the amazing free options that Azure has to provide us. All right. So guys, this is our agenda for today. Are we clear with it? All right. I'm getting confirmation. So Jason is clear. So is Shamantha, Bibek, Ayushi. Alright guys, since most of you are giving me a go, so let's move on to the first topic of today's discussion, which is what is cloud computing. So cloud computing is basically, in a gist, it is the use of remote servers on the internet, right? Now, why do you use these remote servers? You use them to store, to manage, and to process data. When I say store, you're basically storing your files on the cloud. You're storing your files on a file system on the cloud. For example, you have Google Drive, right? So you store your files on the Google Cloud, and hence you are using the cloud to store. You use it to manage, right? You can manage your data using database management services such as MySQL, such as MongoDB. Now you use it on your own servers as well, but instead of your own servers, you're using an implementation on somebody else's servers, right? So it becomes a cloud implementation. And then you use it to process data. Right now, for example, I have some data which will take a lot of time on my in-house servers to be processed, right? So I want a computer which has more compute power, but I don't need that computer for long. Say I just need it for like 3-4 hours, right? So in that case, I will rent a server on cloud, and then I will send my data over there. It will get processed, and then I can fetch the data back, right? So you use cloud to do three things. You use cloud for either storing data, you use cloud to either manage data, or you use cloud to either process data. Any application on the cloud revolves around these three processes only, right? Having said that, this is what cloud computing is all about in a gist. If you pay attention to the second line, it says it is the delivery of an on-demand computing resource, right? What that basically means is that you don't have to plan in advance, right? For example, you launch a website today or you launch an application today, and tomorrow your application becomes a hit, right? So if it becomes a hit, you don't have to plan in advance, like tomorrow if my application becomes a hit, I have to deploy these many servers. Everything happens on the go. So if your application is facing a lot of traffic or if it experiences a surge, you can configure your cloud services as such that it deploys more servers as and when more traffic comes onto your application or website, right? So it's on the go. Everything happens on the fly. If you want more compute resource, bang, you have more compute resource. And the best part is that the way you pay for these services is based on a pay-for-use model. What that means is you pay for only what you use. If you're using a server, say, for around 16 or 25 cores for 3 hours, you'll be paying only for 3 hours for that compute resource, right? And afterwards, if your usage comes down to say 2 cores or 3 cores of CPU, you'll be charged only for those 2 or 3 cores of CPU that you'll be using. Right, so that is the power of cloud computing. That is the flexibility in terms of pricing that you get with cloud computing. And that is the reason it is so famous today. That is the reason people are migrating from traditional services to the cloud services nowadays. All right. Having said that, this is what cloud computing is all about, guys, in a gist. Now, moving ahead, let's discuss what are the benefits that you get from using cloud computing. So we discussed that you rent servers on cloud, you don't buy it, right? So first of all, the cost drastically reduces. then you can deploy your application at a global scale without having to worry about the number of servers that you have to deploy or the cost that has to be put in to buy these many servers. Everything happens on the go. You don't have to worry about anything, right? So your application is ready to be seen at a global scale. If all the people on the globe want to see your application, they can. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about all the servers that need to be assigned to your application, right? Then comes performance, right? So obviously when you have unlimited compute power in your hand, you get the best performance out of it, right? You have better network latency, you have better processing time and everything. So performance is also a factor. Then comes speed. The speed of implementation increases a lot because, like I said, if more traffic comes onto your website or application, you can deploy more servers. You might be wondering how it happens. Don't worry guys, in today's session everything will be clear to you, right? So we'll be discussing each and one of it. So like I said, so yeah, so speed of implementation increases because you can assign more servers to your application or website as and when required. Then also productivity increases because say you are the CEO of the company, and if half the time you were worried whether your website is facing a downtime or whether your application is facing a downtime, and whether your servers needs an upgrade or maintenance, your half energy goes into that. So when will you concentrate on the main product? When will you concentrate on the future prospects of your business, right? So when all of this, when the maintenance, when the provisioning of the servers and everything is handled by the cloud provider, you are actually free to focus all your attention on your application, and hence productivity increases, right? Then comes reliability. So you have SLAs, you have service level agreements with the cloud providers, right? So they guarantee you that they will give you 99.99% availability, right? And with the kind of security that the cloud providers today have, maybe if you implemented it in your in-house servers, you couldn't have got that much security, right? So it again becomes reliable since first of all they guarantee you of the availability, so you don't have to worry about the servers and everything. Secondly, the security part is much better when you use a cloud provider. But mind you guys, you should always be very careful when you choose a cloud provider because there are a lot of new players coming up. Everyone is just trying to get into this industry because the cloud is booming, right? Everyone wants to move to the cloud. And as everyone is trying to move to the cloud, new cloud providers are coming up every day, right? So you have to choose between the cloud providers, which one is more reliable, which one has more cost, efficiency in them and everything. Having said that, let's discuss the different deployment models in cloud. So like I said, if you use servers on the cloud, it is one deployment model. If you use servers in your in-house company, if you're using your in-house servers, it is a different deployment model. Let's see what it is called. So there are basically three types of deployment models. There is one public cloud, there is a private cloud, and there is one hybrid cloud, right? So let's discuss what is the difference between each one of these. So a public cloud is a cloud wherein you use servers or you are using somebody else's servers, and that too on a tenant basis, in the sense that on the same server you have like 5 or 6 operating system, and each operating system has been assigned to a different customer. So basically you're sharing your server with say 3 or 4 people you don't even know about, right? But at the same time you get the security part as well, but then basically you're sharing your resources, kind of you're using a public resource, right? And that is the reason it is called a public cloud. When you talk about a private cloud, what it basically means is that you are using your own servers to host your application or your website, right? So you use your in-house servers, or you take servers from somebody else, you rent servers, but those servers are your own, right? Nobody else is sharing those resources on that server. So this kind of setup is called a private cloud, right? Now, the mixture of public cloud and the private cloud is what is called an hybrid cloud. So when will you use a hybrid cloud? When you have some confidential files, you don't want to take the risk of putting them on the public cloud. You keep them on on-premise servers, right? Say for example, you're a pharmaceutical company and you have researches going on every day in your company, right? So you don't want your research to be leaked because it is a business asset to your company, right? So what you do is you also have a website for the public platform for people to buy medicines from that website. So you put your website on the public cloud so that people can access it. And at the same time, you keep your research on the private cloud. Now, why are you keeping it on the cloud is because obviously you want the research to be accessible by all the employees of your company, right? Or if you have like 3 or 4 branches all over the world, you want each and every branch to be able to access that content, right? So that is the reason you put it on a cloud. But you're not putting it on the public cloud, or instead you're putting it on your own servers or some other dedicated server provided by some third-party provider, right? So, and when you're using an architecture wherein you are putting your confidential files on your private cloud and you're hosting a website on your public cloud, this kind of setup is called an hybrid cloud, right? So guys, are we clear what is the difference between a public cloud, a private cloud, and a hybrid cloud? Any kind of discrepancy that you have in these three topics, or whatever we have discussed so far? We have discussed cloud computing, we discussed its benefit. Any part that you didn't understand, we can repeat it again, no issues. Okay, since most of you are giving me a go. Alright guys, so let's move ahead then. Now like I said, the cloud industry is booming, right? So there are a lot of cloud providers coming in, and it becomes very difficult for you to choose or to judge which cloud provider is the best, right? So we have listed down the top 12 cloud providers which are out there in the industry right now, and these cloud providers are Microsoft Azure, obviously, and then you have DigitalOcean, you have IBM Cloud, you have AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure Terramark, and VMware, right? In today's discussion, we are going to discuss Microsoft Azure because this is the course that you guys have opted for. But the thing here to think about is that why Microsoft Azure? Why are you guys so interested in Microsoft Azure? Now, one thing is that Microsoft Azure is actually becoming pretty big. I mean, the cloud leader on papers, it is AWS right now, but if you see the growth that has been happening in the past few years, Microsoft Azure is actually coming out pretty big, right? So, and that is the reason if you look at this graph, there are the job opportunities for Azure has been on a rise, and that is like, this is the primary reason that you guys want to learn about Microsoft Azure, because obviously you want to make a career shift into the cloud industry, right? And for that, availability of jobs should also be a factor. And if you see the graph, this graph has actually been taken from indeed.com, right? And as you can see, the graph is rising. So if you see in 2014, it was around 0.01%. In the late 2016, it reached around 0.09. It came down to a fall, but then again, it is at a rise. So this is a pattern that you see. But if you take my advice, because I have seen the industry, as far as I know, these jobs are going to increase multifolds in the future as well, right? It's not only restricted to Azure. If you talk about AWS, if you talk about any cloud technology, it has become imperative for you to learn about cloud, because it is the thing. Everything in the next 10 or 15 years is going to be on the cloud, right? Any company which is still on its on-premise servers will move to the cloud one day or another, because that is inevitable. That is something that has to happen. And that is the reason it becomes very important for you guys to skill up to the cloud level, right? Now, talking about Azure, like I said, so jobs are increasing every day. Jobs are there for you. So what needs to be done from you guys is prepare for the exam that is there for Azure, give that exam, get the certification, get hands-on experience, and get the job. This is the course, this is the path that you should have for taking a cloud computing role. Alright, having said that, so guys, this is the reason why we're learning about Microsoft Azure today. Moving on, let's understand what Microsoft Azure is exactly. So Microsoft Azure is a growing applications through Microsoft's global network of data centers, right? So by using the Microsoft infrastructure, you build, deploy, and manage applications on the Azure environment. And like Azure, like I said, it's a cloud provider. It provides you the cloud services. You are using those cloud services, but those cloud services are actually on the Microsoft's infrastructure, and that is what you are paying them for. All right. So this is what Microsoft Azure is all about, guys. Any doubt, guys? If you're not clear with what Microsoft Azure is, I can give you a more detailed explanation. Anything that you're not clear with till now, even if it was you don't even understand what is cloud, I can repeat it again. Anything that you want to ask me. Okay, Suhana is saying she's all clear. Good, Suhana. Others, guys, quickly, guys, now let's try to make this session as interactive as possible, because then it will be in the benefit of both you and me. Because if I understand what you guys are actually getting, I would know how to proceed in the future sessions as well, right? Because our aim is to get certified, to clear this Azure exam, right? And I promise you guys, if you go along with the sessions and if you practice what I'm trying to tell you guys, 100% you will clear the certification. There's no doubt about it. But you have to be vocal. You have to be very enthusiastic in the sessions to learn, right? Because if you're ready to learn, everything will be very interesting to you. All right. Thank you, Jason. All right. Thanks, Bibek. All right. So now I've got a confirmation from all of you guys, which is awesome. So cool. Let's go ahead and move to our next topic. Yeah, so we have discussed what Microsoft Azure is. We have discussed why it is used. We have discussed what is cloud. We have discussed the basic theory around cloud. Now let's see a use case. Now guys, my philosophy is that rather than doing all the theory first and then going on to the practical, I would like to follow the reverse approach, right? I would like to begin from practicals, because that is what your exam will be based on. Your exam will be based on real life examples. It will be based on real life scenarios. It will be based on what kind of hands-on knowledge you have in your Azure domain. All right, and that is the reason every session of ours will have a use case through which we'll try to analyze how we can implement it in the cloud, right? So this is your first use case. This is kind of simple, guys, so please pay attention. So we are trying to make a website which is something like this, right? So what happens here is you have a set of images, and these images are actually being played in the background. And in this website, you have a functionality to upload more files to the cloud. And once you do that, those files will automatically be added in the slideshow and will start running. All right, so this is our use case, and we have to implement it on the cloud. So there are two stages in the way we are going to take this use case. The first stage is we're going to apply pure logic, right? We are going to understand how we can actually deploy it on any cloud service, right? Not only Azure, but any cloud platform which is out there. How can we implement this use case? So let's see that first. And after that, once you have understood that, we'll try implementing it in Azure. So first, let's see how we will implement this in a general scenario by pure logic. So your user base will be accessing the internet, right? Now, when your user will try to access the website, he will enter the website name, right? So all of that traffic will come at this point, which is called a load balancer. Now, what is a load balancer? A load balancer is basically a service which distributes your traffic equally among the servers running at that time. So say there are like 5 servers running on your website then, and if traffic is coming onto your servers, that traffic will be distributed among those 5 servers by the load balancer. So the job of the load balancer is to distribute the traffic equally among the servers, right? So this is what the load balancer is all about. So your user base from the internet is trying to access your website. So the traffic comes to the load balancer, and the load balancer separates, or it segregates the traffic into equal proportions and give it to the servers, right? So once the traffic comes on to the servers process the request. And if you talk about our website, so our photos are actually stored on a file system, right? So whatever files you are uploading, or whatever files are there which are already been uploaded, are there on a file system, all right? So it will access that file system for fetching those files. But our servers, they don't know what files do we want, right? So what is the, like say for example, I upload a file. and before uploading the file there were 3 pictures running in the background. So my server should know what are those 3 files that I have to access, right? There should be a list of those files that the server has to play in the background. Now that list of files is actually stored in a database, right? So what my servers will do is it will first get that list from the database, right? And once it gets that list, it will fetch that list of files from the file system. Say there are around 5 files in the database. So my server will interpret the addresses of those 5 files from the database, and then it will call the file system and get those addresses or get those files from there and try to show that in the slideshow in the website. Now when we upload the file, what happens is first your database is updated, right? So whatever file is being uploaded to your servers, that file is renamed according to whatever parameter you have set, because it has to be unique, right? Each file has to be identified with a unique name, right? So it renames that file to that unique name and then stores it on the database. Once entry has been made on the database, then it gets uploaded onto the file system. Right, so guys, this is the architecture of your application. This is the logic that we'll be following today. Any doubts in whatever I have told you guys as of now? Anything that you think is not clear to you guys, I can explain it again. Anything that is not clear on this slide. This was the general scenario. This was the way you will implement this website on any cloud platform. See, any cloud platform will have a load balancer. It will have the servers, it will have the file system, it will have the database, right? So anything that you didn't understand. So I've got a question from Suhana. She's asking me, what is the case when the servers will automatically increase their number when the traffic increases? Excellent question, Suhana. Actually, I was going to explain that in the further slides, but then, all right, I'll explain you now. So for those of you who didn't get Suhana's question, she's basically asking me, like I told you guys before, that when the user base is trying to access the website and the user base increases, right? So if say around you have 3 servers as of now, and those 3 servers are not able to handle the traffic, your website becomes slow, the processing becomes slow. So I told you guys, if that is the case, the servers increase automatically, right? So this phenomena in any cloud technology is called auto-scaling. So you set a metric in auto-scaling saying, say if CPU goes beyond 60%, then increase the number of instances. When I say instances, I mean the servers, right? So if the CPU usage of your servers increase after 60% or above 60%, there will be an increase in the instance. And when there's an increase in the number of servers, your load balancer will identify, okay, there were like 5 servers before, now there are 6, so it will distribute the traffic accordingly, and hence your CPU usage goes down and your latency or the response time of your website is maintained. All right. So Sohana, did I clear your doubt about how auto scaling is actually implemented? All right, she said thanks. You're welcome, Sohana. Anyone else, guys? Anyone who didn't understand the concept of auto scaling or anything on this particular note? Okay, all well then. You guys are giving me a go. So let's try to implement this architecture in Azure now. So we understood how we can actually architect this use case in a general way, right? Let's see how we can implement it in the Azure environment. So in the Azure environment, the servers that you're trying to implement is actually provided to you by a service called the app service. What is app service? We'll be discussing in the further slides. Then let's talk about the load balancer and auto scaling. So the load balancer is actually implemented by the Azure load balancer and auto scaling, right? Having said that, then we talked about the database. So database is the MySQL database that we'll be using in Azure. And then you have the file system, which is called Blob Storage in Azure. What are these services? You might be confused. Okay, what is Azure Load Balancer? What is App Service? What is MySQL Database? What is Blob Storage? Don't worry, I will explain everything to you in the coming few slides. So let's go ahead then. So these are the services that you'll be using in Azure. Now let's go ahead and understand these services one by one. So let's talk about the app service first. So the app service is basically a part of the compute domain, all right? And in the compute domain, you have a lot of services. But why are we using the app service? Let's understand that. So there are basically three kind of services in the compute domain if we talk about in a very broad sense. The first service is called the virtual machine. Now what is a virtual machine? A virtual machine is just like your traditional computer that you have in your in-house data house. It is a computer that is accessible to you and you can do anything with that computer. You have all the rights to that computer. All you have to do is basically what you will do with a virtual machine is you will say that I need this much RAM, I need this much storage, and I need this much configuration. Please give me a computer. So Azure will create that virtual machine for you, right? And it will give you the IP address and the password for that machine. What you can do is by remote desktop connection, you can enter that IP address, enter the password, and you'll be able to connect to that computer. Now once you connect to that computer, it is your computer now. You have the access to the user interface. You can do anything on this computer. You can make it a website server, you can make it a worker tier environment, you can use it for image processing, right? You can do multiple things on a server like you might be doing on your server as well, right? So this is what virtual machines is all about. You can configure it to become anything. Our next service is called the app service. So it is basically an automated version of a virtual machine, but with limited possibilities. When I say limited possibilities, this service is actually very more focused, right? So app service basically it doesn't give you the access to the user interface, all right? But that gives you a more simple interface to deal with because if you were to host a website on virtual machine, you would have to configure the virtual machine, you would have to configure the firewalls, you would have to install the necessary software, like say for example, you have a PHP website, right? So you would have to install the PHP software on your virtual machine, and then you would have to copy those your website files or the files that you have coded into a specific folder, and then you would have specify the configuration for your firewall and everything, right? So there were a lot of things that you had to do in your virtual machine. With app service, you don't have to do anything. You just have to specify what language you want. Say for example, I want a PHP website, so I'll select PHP. I'll do next. Then it'll ask me what kind of configuration of servers I want. I'll specify the configuration. I click next, and that is it. My website will be deployed automatically. It'll ask me to upload the files. I'll upload the files. It'll automatically send it to whatever folder it is required, and it is done, right? So this is the power of app service, right? It is more automated because with virtual machine everything had to be done manually, but with app service everything happens automatically. I just have to upload my files, right? So this is what app service is all about. Like I said, so app service is basically used to deploy an application, all right? You cannot do anything else with it. You cannot use it to process a customized workload or something like that. You can just use it to deploy an application, and that is why it is called an app service, right? Moving on, let's talk about functions. So functions is basically a very new technology. It's called the serverless architecture. It basically what it does is you don't have to specify the configuration. You don't have to specify anything. You just have to upload your code and it executes it for you. But it will not deploy any application for you. For example, you want to host a website, it will not do that. It just does processing. In the sense, it will only do background tasks for you. For example, if you have, let me take an example which uses both these services. If you have, say, an application like Instagram, right? So user uploads his image on your application, and then your application has to store that image. Now, before storing that image, maybe you want to compress the image or you want to apply a filter to it or whatever, right? So from your application, the file is uploaded and now these many tasks have to be done. If these tasks are actually configured in your code, which is actually uploading the file as well, it will actually increase the overhead on the server which is hosting your application. But what we can do is, the way things happen today is everything is distributed, right? So from your application, only the file will be uploaded. Once the file is uploaded, right, the tasks will be the tasks like renaming the file or compressing the file or applying the filters. Everything will be done using the functions. So the function will get invoked whenever the file is uploaded using the app service, and the function will execute all the tasks that have to be done on that particular image. This reduces the overhead on the server which is hosting your application, right? And you have your background tasks will be implemented by your functions, and then will be stored in the respective file system, whatever you have coded your function to do, right? So this is basically the difference. So recapping again, virtual machine is basically a computer. You can configure it to do anything. You can actually use app service in a virtual machine manually. For example, you want to deploy an application, you can use it by configuring your virtual machine, right? You can also use it as a function, your virtual machine, that I mean to say, as in you can configure it to only execute background tasks. But the thing is, you have to configure everything manually. If you want an automated version, you can go with app service. App service is used to deploy an application, right? But if your use case is not about deploying application, you want to do some raw processing, you might as well opt for functions, which is a service which is not used to deploy an application, but is used to execute background tasks. All right. So guys, any doubt in whatever we have discussed? Like, we discussed virtual machine, we have discussed app service, and we've discussed functions. All right. Like I said, we are using the app service. Why? Because we are deploying a website, right? So for deploying a website, I need app service. So it cannot be done using functions. It can be done using virtual machines as well, but it will need a lot of manual work. And our job is to make everything faster, right? So cloud computing is all about speeding up things. The speed of implementing is increased, right? So I'll rather use an app service and upload my code on the app service, and it will deploy the website for me, right? It's that simple, guys. Having said that, guys, any doubt why we chose app service in the compute domain? Okay, guys, since all of you are clear, let's move on to the next topic of today's discussion, which is the blob storage. So the blob storage is basically the file system that you need to upload your files, right? You definitely need a file system. There is no alternative to this, right? So your blob storage is the place where you'll be storing your image files. But why did we choose the blob storage? Why not some other service from the storage domain? Let's discuss that. So in the storage domain, basically you have three kind of services. You have more services as well, but these are the three main services in the blob in the storage domain. You have the blob storage, you have the queue storage, and then you have the backup, right? So the blob storage is, like I said, is a file system on which you can upload any kind of file, right? And that's about it. There is nothing more to blob storage. This is the thing. Next is queue storage. So queue storage is basically a queuing service. Whenever you have to synchronize tasks, say for example, process 1 has to be done before process 2, and process 2 has to be done before process 3. So what you can do is you can bundle these tasks in a sequential manner, and you can add it to the queue storage, right? What the queue storage will do is it will actually hold these tasks according to the sequence that you entered, right? And whenever the queue storage is accessed, it will give them only the first task, not the second task or the third task first. So the way it functions is like this. Say for example, like I said, the image processing application, I want to rename file first, then I want to add filters, and then I want to store it on the file system. So these three tasks, I will write it down and I will add it into the queue storage. Now, say these tasks will be done by my functions, all right? So what functions will do is it will try to interact with queue storage and it will ask for a task, all right? So queue storage will give the task to functions in a very sequential manner, in the sense that it will first give it the task to rename the file. So it will rename the file. Once that task is done, it will again try to access queue storage, and then queue storage will give it a task to filter the image or apply filter to the image, right? Then it will apply a filter to the image, it will be done with that, and then it will try to again the queue storage, and then it will see that, okay, now it has to store that file in a file system which is specified in the code, right? And it will pick that task, do it, and be done with the first file, and then it will again access queue storage, and the process goes on, right? So basically queue storage is used to give a sequential manner to the processes that you're trying to execute. Having said that, this is about queue storage. Then comes backup. So backup is a service wherein you can store your infrequently accessed data, right? What is your infrequently accessed data? Could be, for example, in my company, we take a record of everything, right? We take a record of every class that we do. We take a record of every query that you guys raise. Now say the classes that were taken, say like 2 years ago, right? And as obviously I cannot delete those classes because they have to be kept for record. But what is the point of keeping them on my live hard drive? Because my live hard drive is where I do my current tasks, right? So rather than keeping it on my live hard drive, I say, okay, let me keep it in a CD or a pen drive and keep it somewhere where I can take it out when I actually need them, right? So this is the concept of taking a backup. Now, similarly, if you want to take a backup in Azure, say you have your virtual machine and you have stored a lot of files on your virtual machine, but you think, okay, I don't need these files anymore, or maybe I don't need these files as of now, I might need them later. So why do spend that much on the storage that you're taking on the virtual machine, right? Rather than storing the infrequently accessed data, why not put more frequently accessed data? So what you can do is the infrequently accessed data that you have in your machine on the cloud, you can actually take a backup of that and store it in the backup service. Now, why will you store it in the backup service? Is because storage is more cheaper when you talk about the backup service, because obviously, first of all, they'll use magnetic tapes or they'll use SSDs or something like that to store your data. Now, why is it cheap? Is because obviously it has a downside that the response time or the time to retrieve the file from a backup service is obviously more. For example, if you have stored everything in your virtual machine, you can like go to that particular folder, access that file, and that is it, right? But if you have stored it in the backup service, the retrieval actually takes time. But it is worth it because you don't use that file every day, right? You won't be using it, and also you're paying less, so it doesn't pinch you that much because you're paying less and you are not using that file very frequently as well. So why not put it in the backup service? So this is what the backup service is all about. Now today in our implementation we are using the blob storage for obvious reasons that I want to store my image files, right? So I'll not store it on the backup, obviously. I'll not store it in the queue storage. I'll store it in the blob storage because that is what that service is meant to do. Alright guys, so any doubt why I'm using the blob storage? Okay, you guys are giving me a go. Let's go ahead then. Now our next service from Azure is the MySQL service from Azure. It is basically a MySQL implementation on the Azure infrastructures, right? So you can use any database you want. In Azure you have an SQL service which is purely SQL, so if you're comfortable with that you can use it. I am using MySQL for my use case today because that is the way I have coded my application to be. Alright, so it is just personal choice. The next service that we are going to talk about is auto scaling and load balancing. So like I said, load balancing is when you want to equally distribute your traffic among the number of servers that are running that time, and auto scaling is actually scaling up the number of servers that you're using according to the traffic that is coming onto your website. So you can actually set a metric that so obviously when more traffic is coming onto your website, your CPU utilization will increase because you have to process more requests now. Yeah, so your server will be processing more requests, and that is the reason your CPU usage will increase. So you can actually set a metric that say my CPU usage when it increases 60 or 70%, increase one more instance or increase 3 or 4 more instances. Right, so it is based on your personal use. So this is what auto scaling is all about, and obviously when you're using auto scaling, the number of servers is changing constantly. You need a load balancer along with it, right? The load balancer, so that say you have 6 or 7 servers which are running right now, and say the traffic decreases and it sees, okay, now the CPU utilization is going down, so it will reduce the number of servers, right? So when it will reduce the number of servers, the load balancer should identify, okay, though there were 7 servers before, now there are like 3. So you'll be distributing the traffic according to those 3 servers, right? So the load balancer actually plays a very important role in the auto scaling process. Having said that, so this is how auto scaling actually works. So say you have 1 server, right, and the usage increases, it goes on to become 2 servers, and then again the usage increases, it becomes 3 servers, right? Now when the usage decreases, these 3 servers can be reduced to 1 server or can be reduced to 2 servers. So this is a diagram representation of what auto scaling is. We talk about load balancer, like I said, so load balancer is a very crucial part of auto scaling process because load balancer is the part which actually distributes the traffic according to the number of servers that are running at that time, right? So this is how the process works. The traffic comes onto the load balancer and the load balancer sees how many servers are running and distributes traffic according to that. Alright. Okay, so we are done with the services. These are the services that we'll be using today. Guys, any doubt in whatever service that we are using today? Any doubt in why are we using them? Why not some other service? Why not the services that we discussed are an alternative to the services that we have in that particular domain? Any kind of confusion you have? I can clear it out. Okay, so you guys are giving me a go. So let's start this topic now. So now we'll see how we can launch these services in the Azure user environment. So guys, we'll talk about the app service first. We'll see how we can launch an app service in the Azure UI. Okay, let me show you the user interface for Azure now. So guys, this is how the user interface for Azure looks like. You have all the services listed there on the left side, right? And this is the dashboard. This is called the dashboard. Whatever services you launch, you can pin it here for basically getting access quickly. It is just like a desktop on your computer which has all the shortcuts and everything, and this is what the dashboard is actually used for. Alright, having said that, let's see how we can launch the app service in Azure. So first you will click on app services. As you can see from here, you can click on app services, and moving ahead, once you have clicked on app services, you will reach this page. Click on create app services, and then you'll click on web app, and that is it. Let me show you how you'll do that. So you'll click on app services, click on create app services, you'll go down, click on web app, and over here, as you can see, after this you will reach the screen wherein you will see that you have four options. You can either code your website in .NET, PHP, Node.js or Python. So if it is either of these four languages, you don't have to do anything. You just have to upload your code in this web app that you'll be creating, and your app will be deployed automatically without installing any software, without doing any configuration, just this. All right. Okay, so once you have reached this page, you will click on create. So let's click on create, and then you will reach the screen. So now you have to give your application some name. So let us give us this name as Edureka-01. So it says everything is fine. So this subscription is pay as you go. Resource group is something which you can create or you can use as existing. So resource group is something, it's a group of all the resources, right? So we'll be creating a storage account, we'll be creating database account, we are creating an app service, right? So all of this will come under one group. It can be clubbed in one group and it will be called as resource group. So any changes that you want to put across the group, you can do to the resource group. Alright, we'll be discussing in detail what a resource group is in the further modules, but for now, all you should understand is that a group of resources is called a resource group. So if you have an application and it's utilizing say 3 or 4 resources, it's better to put those resources under one group. Alright, so this is about that. Then you have the app service plan. So app service plan is something as in what kind of computers you use and everything. So let's create a new plan for you so that you understand it better. Under the pricing tier, this is the main part that you have to select, guys. You can select the app service plan. You can give it some name. Let's give it as app service -1. All right. And this is my app service plan. You can select what kind of plan you need. Let me select the basic plan as of now and click on select. All right. And then click on OK. So this was about app service plan. You can click on application insights, which basically gives you the monitoring tools. For now, let's not discuss it. Let's not go into it. We'll be discussing it later. And now let's click on create. So I am ticking the pin to dashboard, which will basically create a shortcut on my dashboard to this application. Comes in handy, and that's it, guys. You will click on create. All right. So now my application is being created. Okay. So alright, while my web app is deploying, let me go back to my slide and let's jump on to our next service, which is Blob Storage. So like I said, Blob Storage is just like a file system. You need a file system to store your files, right? So that is what the Blob Storage is all about. Let's see how we can create a Blob Storage instance in Azure. So you will reach, this is the dashboard, you reach the screen and you will click on storage accounts. Once you have clicked on storage accounts, you'll click on add, and that is it, guys. Nothing much required. Let's go ahead and do this. I'll go here, I'll click on storage accounts. I will reach the screen and click on add, and I will start entering the value. So let's give it the name called Edureka-01. So this is taken. Let's give it name as Azure Edu. Right, this name is available. Alright, so the performance should be standard because this is a demo. Replication is not required, so I'll say locally redundant storage. Storage service encryption is not required. Secure transfer is not required. And subscription is pay as you go. Okay, resource group. Let's select Edureka-01 because this is the resource group that I selected earlier, right? And let's pin it to dashboard. So we'll click on create. Alright, so my web app has been deployed already and my storage account is also being deployed. Alright, so this was about it. Let's go on. Let's see for our MySQL now. So for MySQL, let's see what all we have to do. So we will click on new, we will click on databases, and then we'll click on Azure database for MySQL. Alright, and that is about it. Let's go back and do that. So we'll click on new. We'll search for Azure database for MySQL. Alright, here it is. So I'll click on this and I'll click on create. So here it is. I have to enter the server name. Let's enter the server name as Edureka-01. It is available. It's good. The resource group should be the same. So let's select Edureka-01. Server admin login name, let's give it as Edureka. Password, let's give it Edureka1234. Confirm the password, Edureka1234. And it is asking me some special character, so let me add the special character as well. Okay, so basically you cannot have the login name in your password. So let me change the password to edu1234 exclamation. Same in the confirmation. Alright, so this is available now. The location is South Central US. Version is 5.7. Pricing tier, let me see if there is something more or less. Alright, I'll take this. I'll click on OK. Pin it to dashboard and click on create. It's pretty simple, guys. You would know when you will do the hands-on on yourself. So the pricing tier can be the minimum if you are using it for demo, or if you're creating an application which is for global scale application, you can choose the pricing tier according to that. Alright, while it is deploying, let's move ahead. So let's come on to the auto scaling part now. So basically we have to configure our web app to auto scale as and when required. So let's see how we can do that. So let's understand the types of auto scaling first. So basically there are two types of scaling. One is called horizontal scaling and one is called vertical scaling. So horizontal scaling is when you are increasing the number of servers that you require. Say you have an i7 server, for example. Alright, now the usage goes up, so you take two i7 servers, and if it again goes up, you take three i7 servers, right? So this is what horizontal scaling is all about, right? Let's come on to vertical scaling now. So vertical scaling is when you are increasing the capacity or the configuration of your system. Say you were using an i3 system before, right? The traffic increases, so now you're using an i5 system. The traffic increasing, now you're using the i7 system. So you are having only one machine, but you're increasing the configuration of your system, right? So these are the two types of scaling which exists in auto scaling. Also, the other way is manual scaling. So you can also manually scale up the number of instances or the configuration of your system, right? So the way to do that is to manually go into the service, change the pricing tier, and you're set. This is how you manually scale. Auto scaling, I'm going to tell you in a couple of few slides. Also, guys, when you are auto scaling, like I said, load balancing is automatically attached to it. Alright, so when you will be auto scaling in a web app, you don't have to configure the load balancer. The load balancer is configured automatically and set automatically for you to be used. Alright, because it doesn't make sense to use auto scaling and not use load balancer. And that is the reason Azure has automated the process of attaching a load balancer when you're using auto scaling. Alright, moving ahead, guys, let's see how we can launch this instance. So guys, first you will click on app services. You will go to your particular instance that you have launched. You will go to scale out and you will click on enable auto scale. Alright, so let's do that. We will go to app services, which is here. So this is my instance that I've launched. I'll click on Edureka -01. I'll go down and as you can see I have two options. I have scale up and I have scale out. When I click on scale up, you will see the pricing tier, so I can increase the configuration of my system, right? But this is not what I want. I want to scale out, which is I want to increase the number of instances running right now, right? So it says auto scale is not supported for basic tier of web apps. Okay, so let me change my configuration. Alright, so if I go to scale out now, you can see that I have the option to enable auto scale. So I will click on enable auto scale and then let's give it a name. Let's give it a name as Edureka Auto. Alright, so my auto scaling property name is Edureka Auto. The resource group is Edureka-01. Right, so now you have an option to scale based on a metric which is based on some statistics like the CPU usage or the memory usage or anything, right? And the other one is scale to a specific instance count. So for example, whenever the traffic increases, say you were one instance now, like increase to 5 instances. All right, so these are the two options. We'll go with scale based on a metric and scale out and scale in your instances based on metric. Alright, so let's add a rule. Let's add the rule as in what do we want, what kind of metric do we want to monitor and scale according to, right? So as you can see, the time aggregation is not something we should be worried about. Okay guys, so these are all the metrics that you can actually monitor and scale according to. You can scale according to the memory percentage. You can scale according to disk queue, HTTP queue, data in and data out, right? So let's for now keep it simple and scale according to CPU percentage, right? The time is not something you should be worried about. And the operator, alright, so what should be the condition? So should it be greater than or should it be greater than or equal to? Let's keep it at greater than or equal to. So whenever the threshold is greater than, whenever the CPU usage will go greater than or equal to 70 for 10 minutes. So you can set this as say 2 minutes, alright? Okay, so it says that it should be between 5 and 720. Okay, so let's keep it at 5. And increase count by. So let's see what all options we have here. So you can increase by percentage, you can increase by count too, as in if you were 1, you can increase it to 10, right? And you can decrease the count or you can decrease the person by as well. Alright, so when you are auto scaling guys, you have to set two rules. One is the rule to increase and obviously one rule is there to decrease. So whenever the traffic goes down, you have to decrease your instances as well. So for now we are setting the increase rule. So let's set the increase count by option. So how many instances should it increase? I think 1 is a fair number. And cooldown is something that is actually there when you are, say you auto scale right now, right? And then say you auto scaled 1 minute back and again the CPU usage goes up. So rather than going on and scaling up again, what you can do is you can wait for 5 minutes and watch the metrics, right? Because it doesn't happen in a second that your CPU usage will go down because there are a lot of services which are actually running, right? So you can wait. Once your new server has been deployed, you can wait for the traffic to be transferred to that server as well, and then you can see the metrics go down. All right, for that we keep something called cooldown minutes, right? So we have the default is for 5. Let's keep it at 5 only, and now this is it guys. There's nothing else to configure. Let's click on add. Alright, so as you can see, this rule has been set. Let's add one more rule to decrease. So the CPU percentage is fine. The operator should be less than or less than, right? So whenever the threshold is less than 50%, decrease count by 1 instance and let the cooldown be this much. Alright, so Again, the cooldown logic goes here as well. Say you decrease an instance and again your CPU is still low because it takes time for your traffic to get transferred to the server number it has decreased down to, right? So let's keep the cooldown minutes. So we'll click on add now. Alright, so we have added the auto scaling rule, guys. This is it. There's nothing much to configure. Actually, if you think about it, it's a very complex process, but Azure has given you the simplicity to do it very simplistic or a very English manner, because you just say, like I said, if the CPU usage is above 70%, increase the number of servers by 1, right? So if you go here and if you don't know about auto scaling, you can actually figure out what is happening, right? And same is the case with scale-in. So whenever your CPU is less than 50%, decrease the count by 1, right? So as you can see, you can actually read it here that this is what we have configured. All right, so let's save this now. Alright guys, so this is how you auto scale your web app instance. Now since we are doing a demo, guys, we don't require the auto scale module for my application, so I'll just discard it for now because I can't even demonstrate this to you, right? So I just showed you how you can auto scale. Now let's go back and see what all is left. Alright, so now we are going to do the demonstration. So we have launched each and every service. We have launched the app service, we have launched the Blob Storage, and we have launched some MySQL for Azure. Right? Now let's go back and check and deploy our website. So let me show you how the website looks like in my local host. So my local host is this. Alright. Okay, so this is showing me an error because as of now my code is not connected to my Azure instances. Alright, so let's first configure our instances. So let us go to the dashboard and let's first configure our database. Alright, now for configuring your database, the first thing that you have to do is connect to it, right? Now the way you can connect to it is using the command prompt. For that, you have to click on connection security. Now you cannot connect to your database just like that. You have to configure your IP address in the set of rules that are there for the firewall of the database. And when your IP address is listed there, then you can connect to the database. Let me show you how. Let me show you that you cannot connect as of now. So I will launch the command prompt. I will go to my MySQL installation. All right. Alright, so this is my MySQL installation, guys. So I will type in the command mysql-h space and then the server name, which is this. I'll paste it here. Alright. Then I will give the port number. So the port number is capital P, guys. Don't forget it's capital P. It's different than small p. Right? Small p is for password, capital P is for the port number. And then I'll give the username. So the username is this. I'll paste it here. Right, and then I will type in the password. I'll hit enter the password, which is edu1234 exclamation. Hit enter. See, as you can see, client with IP address is not allowed to access the server. Alright, so now what I'll do is I'll go to connection security. I will add my IP and I'll click on save. So it says successfully updated connection security. Let's go back to our command prompt. Execute the same command again, type in our password, and now as you can see I have successfully connected to my database. Now I can create a database here called Edureka. Let me create a database. Let me clear the screen. Oh guys, I forgot I'm working on Windows. So in Windows you cannot clear your MySQL screen. What a sham. Alright, so if you were using Linux you could have just typed in Control L and it would have been fine. Alright guys, so as I was saying, let's create a database called Edureka. So create database Edureka, and that is it. Then I'll type in use Edureka. I'll create a table. Let's create a table called image, right? And the title name as this. 1 second. My column name is name. Alright, so I've created a table. So if I type in show tables, it will show me the table name, which is image. Alright guys, so this is done now. I have created a table. At first I created a database called Edureka in my MySQL, which is hosted on Azure, and then I created a table called image in it, and the table has one column called name. Alright, so this is it. This was my MySQL. So my MySQL has been configured now. Alright, so my MySQL has been configured now. Let me go back to the overview. Alright, so my MySQL has been configured. As you can see in the databases, it will show that there's a database called Edureka which I just created. Alright, let's go back. You might have to add the web apps IP address as well. We'll do that later. Let's go to our web app now. Awesome. So we'll go to our web app. And guys, this is your web app. This is the URL for your website. We'll click on this URL and you will see a welcome page. This is your welcome page. So now what you have to do is you have to upload your code over here. Alright. So the way you can do this is using GitHub, or you can do it using FTP as well. Now I know most of you are from non-technical background, so you might not be knowing what GitHub is. So for now what I'll be doing is I will be using a FTP software called FileZilla for transferring my files. From the next session onwards I'll be using GitHub, and for that I have actually there is a video in your LMS which is a short tutorial on GitHub, how to use GitHub, which is enough for a demonstration. So you can go through that video before coming to the next session, and then we will be using GitHub. Alright, for now let's use the FTP software which is called FileZilla. Alright, so the way you can connect here is like this. So you have to create a deployment credential. Alright, so my deployment credentials is HR1. Let's give it a password, and the password could be, okay, let me give as Hemant199. Alright, and over here also Hemant199. Alright, let's click on save. Or maybe this username is not available, so let me give it HR12. Click on save. Okay, let's try this again. HR12. Alright, maybe I'm connected here, maybe that's why. Let me exit it. It's Hemant1994. Let's click on save. Alright, so I get the error out of here. Right. So we have successfully reset the deployment credentials now. Alright. So what we can do is I will go back to my web app. Alright. So now I can get connected to my web app. I'll have to enter the FTP hostname. So it'll go here. 1 second. Alright. The hostname will go here. The username is HR12. Password is this. Right. And what else? Alright. The username is this. I'm sorry. The username will be this. Alright. Let's click on Quick Connect. Alright, so as you can see, we have successfully logged into our FTP channel. So over here you'll go on a site, right? You'll go on www.root, and then you can copy all your website files over here. So let us do that. My files are somewhere here. Alright, so let's copy the files now. I can just drag and drop it over here, and the process will start. Now it might take a while, so let us configure some other files while my website is being copied. Okay, so now what we can do is we will go to our dashboard and we can configure our storage. Mind you guys, I might have to upload my code which in my web app, because there are some things that I have to change in the code because the addresses and all, I'm creating new services, right? So I'll have to change the services address in my code. So I'll do that, and then I will update the particular file that I'll be changing in my web app. So let me just give me a minute. Okay, so now what I'll do is I will create a blob. Over here I'll create a container, and the container name shall be hello, and the access type be container. Alright, I click on OK. So I have successfully created a container called blob. If you go in properties, you will see that this is the URL for it, right? So let me show you the code for my website, guys. So this is the code for my website. Alright, now I'll have to change the URL at places, so let me do that. So it will get changed here. Alright, then my container name is hello, so that is okay. And now one more thing, guys. So whenever you are basically going to connect to your storage account, your blob storage, you have to go here. I'll show you. You will have to go to access keys. So here's your key, right? So this is the connection string that you have to include in your code. I've copied it. I'll go here and I will include it in the connection string code. All right. So I'll control V, and over here you have to remove the endpoint suffix. All right. So this is not required. If you put this, it will not work. Okay. I don't think anything else is required. Oh yes. I have to change the database credentials as well. So let's do that as well. So your storage account is set. You don't have to change anything else. Let's go to the MySQL part. Alright, here it is. So the server name has to be changed. Let's copy the server name and give it here. So the host name is this. Alright, and let's see. So our login name is this. Let's put the login name here. Password is edu1234 exclamation, which is right. DB name, database name is Edureka, which is right. Username, user table is image, which is right, and the field name is name. Alright, everything seems fine. One more place I have to change it, so let's do that as well. So let's copy this, paste it here, copy our username, paste it here, and everything seems fine now. So now when I try to run the code, it will run on my local host, but it will not run on my web app. Why? Because I'll tell you. So I was getting these warnings, right? So let me refresh. Wait, let me save it. So let me refresh it now. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so say successfully updated. Let's go back and check whether it's working. Alright, so basically you have to disable the enforce SSL connection in your MySQL, and that would be it. I forgot to do this. Alright, so now I will choosing a file and I'll be uploading this particular file, which is desert. I'll click on upload image and it will take some time to upload the image, and it says well done, blob update complete. And as you can see, my image is loading. Let's check whether we have it in our dashboard, as in our storage account. We'll go to Azure Edu, we'll click on blobs, we'll go to hello container, and you can refresh it. And as you can see, there will be a file here which says 1496742468. Alright, so let me connect to my MySQL now again. Alright, just give me a second. I will type in MySQL-H and then the username. So this is my hostname, guys. So I'll copy this hostname, paste it here, and then my port number, which is 3306, my username, which is this, I'll paste it here, and then the password, which is as of now this edu1234 exclamation. I've connected to my database. I'll use the database that I've created, select table, and I'll show you the record. Now let's compare it with what is there. It's 1496 and 42468, and it's 1496 and 42468. So guys, as you can see, the same file has been uploaded here and it has been mentioned here. So what my website is now doing is, it is basically fetching the file from my database and then accessing the file over here in my file system, and hence displaying it in its background. So as of now, since there is only one image, it is not showing the slideshow. Let me choose one more file. Let's upload the koala image and click on upload image. So now when you will see, that's the image which is being loaded. And if I go here and I refresh it, I can see that there are two images now here, right? And in my database as well, if I refresh it, I can see two images. Alright guys, so this website seems to work fine. It is connecting with my storage account. It is connecting with my database on Azure. Now let's check if my files have been uploaded. So it says, okay, this might take some time guys. So let's wait, because we are all set here. We are done with everything. We are just waiting for our files to be transferred here, and then I'll show you how it works over there. Alright, so let's wait. Alright guys, so my transfers have finished. So now let's check whether my web app is working or not. Right, so I'll go to the dashboard. I'll go to my web app, and this is the link. I'll click on this link. Now guys, like I said, you have to add the IP address of the web app in the MySQL as well. So when I go here, you'll see an error, right? And now, like I said, we have to send the index file again. So I delete the index file from the server from here. Alright, copy the index file again because it's been updated. Alright, and now I will refresh this. So as you can see, it says the IP address is not allowed to access the server. So what we'll do is, we'll copy the IP address. We'll go to our database, go to connection security. Alright, so here we are. We'll select the web app, give the start IP and the NIP. Alright, so let's get rid of the spaces, and this is it. Now we'll click on save. Now why are we doing this? We are doing this because here we got an error that this IP address is not validated with the MySQL. So we have added this IP address over here. It says successfully updated security settings. Let's refresh it and check. Okay, awesome guys. So now my website is working. So I have successfully updated my website in the web app. Alright, and I didn't have to configure anything. I didn't go to the UI. I just transferred my files and my website is up and ready. This is the address which is being used to get to the website. Alright, so guys, this was the demo. Let me get back to my slide. So let me recap what I did. I configured my app service with the code. I configured my MySQL with the IP addresses of my own computer to configure it, and the IP address of my app service, so that the app service can communicate with the MySQL. I configured my blob storage and I configured its address in my code, my PHP code, and I configured the host name and the password for the created MySQL service in my PHP code as well. So guys, this is what we did. Now you might be wondering, I didn't explain the code. So the code is actually there in your LMS. Alright, So it is there for your reference. I have uploaded a document which explains the code as well. If you have any doubts, it's pretty simple if you look at it, but if you have any doubts, you can always ping me back, or you can contact our support team and they'll help you out with it. And anyways, if it is not clear to you, in the next session, I will take, say, around 10-15 minutes and explain you the code. I think it will not be needed once you go through the documentation, but if it is, I will be happy to answer those queries for you. All right, having said that, let's go ahead, guys. So we're done with the demo. Let's get on with Azure pricing now. Now, whatever services that we have used, what if I tell you that you can use them for free? Yeah. So let me teach you guys how you can do that in the Azure pricing section. So the Azure pricing section has these three features, all right? So but the first time you register on Microsoft Azure as a new account, you first of all get $200 worth of free credits in your account. Now what you can do with this $200 is you can use it to deploy application as and when you want. So this is a one-time free credits that are allotted to you on registration. Also, with these credits, you can explore any services for free in the Azure for the first 30 days. So in Azure, you can use these credits to launch any kind of service for the first 30 days. And of course, after you use the services, you don't have to pay anything, all right? But you might have to register your credit card with them, because that is how it works. They'll charge you 1 rupee in that, and then they'll refund the 1 rupee afterwards. This is just for verification purposes, because once your free trial ends, you have to upgrade your plan to pay as you go or whatever that you are looking for, right? But the good thing about Azure is that sometimes it happens that we start using the free thing and we forget to see that it is only valid for 30 days, and we forget that, and after 30 days if you use another services you get charged, right? But with Azure that is not the case. With Azure what happens is you are given a pricing tier which says free trial, right? So at the end of 30 days it says free trial expired, and you're not allowed to do, or you're not allowed to access any of your services. It is only when you manually change your plan from free trial to pay as you go that when you can actually start using your services again. So which is a good thing by Azure, because you have control of your finances in your hand, right? You will know what you get charged for. And that is something very transparent about Azure that it has come up with, which is a very good thing. Having said that, let's go ahead and understand the two plans which are there. So one plan is called pay as you go plan, and the other plan is called 6-month or 12-month plan. So basically with pay as you go plan, the thing is that you take a service or you take an instance and you use it for 1 day or 2 day or a week or 2 weeks, and you pay for that amount only, all right? But when you want longer commitments, say for example our website, right, our company's website, it's called edureka.co. So it will be there until the company is there, right? So for those kind of cases, it is better to go for long-term plans, because with long-term plans you get discounts, right? So if you compare it with pay-as-you-go, if you're using an instance with pay-as-you-go plan for say 6 months, and you compare it with a service or instance in which you have opted for a 6 months plan or a 12 months plan, and you have gone through the 6 months, the amount of money that you're paying in that and the amount of money that you're paying through the pay-as-you-go service is obviously less, right? So the other thing is with the plan, the catch here is that you have to pay a full upfront or a partial upfront payment for the 6 months or 12 months or whatever term that you want the instance to be running on, right? So this is the thing, that you have two kind of things. You have pay as you go plan, and then you have a plan wherein you pay in future. So it's basically like prepaid and postpaid. With prepaid you have 6 months and 12 months plan. With postpaid you have pay as you go model. Having said that, let's move ahead, guys. So this is the thing that you guys have been waiting for, the free things that you get in Azure, all right? So the services that we use today, the app service, for example, is free, right? So it is free up to an extent that you can host up to 10 web and mobile apps on any platform or device in Azure for free, right? So for more information, you can go to this link which I have added in my slide. So this link will take you there, and it lists all the services which are there. Some of the services that we have not discussed today are also included under the free subscription. And now the good thing with Azure is, guys, that even if your free trial ends, these free things will be there for you, right? You can use these free things even if the free trial ends. These free things are there for life. So the first 10 app services that you use in Azure, they are free. Similarly, with the case of virtual networks, you can actually create 50 free virtual networks with Azure, right? After the 50 virtual networks that you would have created, the 51st would be charged for you as one virtual network. It is again a cool thing, right? So like app service and virtual network, like I said, there are other services as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 in all, which are free within Azure for a lifetime. So there are some restrictions, like for example in app service you can only run 10 app services for free. Similarly, you have these services as well, alright? So this is a cool thing about Azure, that even if the field trial ends, they give you free services. Having said that, guys, okay, so that brings us to the end of our session. Any doubts, guys, until yet? Anything that you didn't understand in the demo maybe, or in the pricing section? Anything that you didn't understand, I will be happy to repeat it again. Any doubts, guys? Anything that you think you are not clear with, I can clear it to you right now. Okay, so Shamantha is saying nice session. Thank you, Shamantha. Vivek is saying thank you for the nice session. You're welcome, Vivek. Okay, shall we wrap this up, guys? Alright, then I'll wrap this up. So guys, thank you for attending today's session. So before ending it, let us quickly recap what all we did today. So we saw what is cloud, and then we went on to see what is Microsoft Azure, right? And then we saw a use case in which we discussed a general architecture which can be implemented to any cloud form. And then we also saw it in Azure. We saw the implementation in Azure, and we saw how we can launch these instances or these services in Azure. Once we're done with that, once we learned that how to launch these services, we went on to the demo and we hosted this website on the Azure environment. And after that, we discussed the Azure pricing, wherein we discussed some services which are for free, and we discussed the plans which are there with Azure and some other things. Right, so guys, this was our session for today. Any doubts until yet? Anything that you recall right now which is not clear to you, I shall clear it to you right now. Anything that you're not clear with? All right, okay. So thank you guys for attending today's session. It was nice teaching you guys all. You guys were awesome. And one thing that I would like to say is I'll be uploading some assignments in your LMS. I expect you to do those assignments before coming to the next class. Also, please go through that GitHub video that I was talking about. It is very necessary because from the next time onwards, I'll be uploading the code through Git. Alright, I would want you to practice this demonstration that we have done today, right? Because seeing is one thing and doing it on your own is another. So please practice it so that we are on the same page in the next session. Alright, other than that, if you have any doubts, you get stuck anywhere in the demo or anything else that you might feel after the class that you're not clear with, please contact our support team, which is available for you 24/7. They will help you in any query of yours. And if they can't solve your query, I am always there. You can contact me through my email, which is present in your LMS, right? So you have my email IDs. You can contact me anytime, and whenever I have time, I'll get back to you. All right. So on that note, so guys, thank you for attending today's session. Goodbye and have a good day ahead.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!